Hi guys, in this review I'll be checking out the ATOTO P8 on-dash navigator or stereo display. This is a 7-inch portable CarPlay and Android Auto display which works with your Android or iPhone device. It's got multi-touch control on the actual screen itself, anti-glare QLED display which is pretty good, auto brightness adjustment, it's got front and rear DVR camera input, and it all powers off your 12-volt adapter in the car. It comes with a separate remote that you can attach over the steering wheel or place somewhere that's more convenient in your car should you not have any sort of wheel controls. You can control the display remotely through this little Bluetooth device. And it has the more traditional 3 ways of audio output to your car stereo, either through FM transmission, aux output via cable, or just the built-in speaker. Okay, let's check out what's inside the box. Right, here's what you get inside the box. There's a lot to cover here. So first you get a couple of manuals, warranty, quick start, and a more in-depth manual on how to use it. There is the 7-inch display itself with an integrated cable, and I'll go over that in a minute. You have the screen mounting arm which has some depth adjustment as well as vertical adjustment, and a nice grippy pad that I've been seeing recently which really does stick onto the dashboard as well as the windscreen. Here is the steering wheel remote control which you can lasso around your steering wheel, and it has some glow in the dark buttons there to go backwards and forwards, accept and decline calls, mute and go forward and back in music tracks, as well as invoke the Google Assistant or Siri. In that packet you get a spare battery for the remote and an adhesive sticker should you wish to mount this somewhere else on your dashboard rather than on a moving steering wheel. Next there is a ball socket mount joint to attach the screen mount to the actual display itself. Here is the quite thick cable, and I'll go into that in a minute why it's that thick. 12-volt adapter with 2 USB ports on one end and an auxiliary jack on the other. So this is good because you get one cable to either route through your center console or not to clutter the whole console with full of cables, and you've got a very discreet aux cable which is lower down that you can tidily tuck away in your car as well. So that's really nice to see. Got 4 cable ties, some sort of fabric adhesive mount. This is a 3-port cable, a USB-C cable to 2 connectors for the rear and front facing cameras. You get some additional clips to wire the cable with, and there's some adhesives. An auxiliary cable for the auxiliary option for audio. Here is the front facing camera, so you would mount this onto your front dashboard or anywhere on the dashboard should you not want to go facing forward. You can actually have this facing inside if you want an internal camera instead. It has one single connection to the display as well, which makes it nice and discreet. You also get a mounting plate to have on the dash to have a fixed point of contact should you need that. And then finally you get quite a robust metal rear view camera that you can attach to the underside. It has a short little lid there for any rain to stop from dripping onto the lens, which is quite nice to see. One point of contact, and also a couple of connectors here to connect to the additional cable. However, it does look like you do need to also splice this to your rear to initiate the display itself. So overall, plenty of nice touches and lots of new nice features that we've not really seen on other displays. So let's have a look at the screen then. It's a 7-inch display running at 1024 by 600. It's a QLED panel. This is probably like the 3rd generation of panel type that we're now seeing. So it should be nice and bright, quite vivid. It has 2 built-in speakers at the back that you can see there. We've got a power on and off button there. You've got the mounting section to attach to the mounting bracket. USB-C input for the 2 front and rear facing cables. You've got a sunlight sensor to alter the display in real time. A micro SD card slot on the side there. Nothing on top or on the sides apart from a microphone input hole there, and there's nothing on the bottom. But what I really like is that all this is done with one cable to make a much more neater install, which I think more people should adopt. So let's get this plugged in and fired up. We're going to attach this cable to the main cable here, and I'm just going to connect this to a 12-volt adapter down here, and then we get a pretty nice instant on for the display, and we're in. Slight hissing sound that I can hear, but obviously you're not going to hear that over a sort of car engine idle noise. Quite a cluttered user interface if I'll be honest, but you've got a main menu button here. These are grayed out because you've got no device that's currently connected to it, I assume. Looks like a persistent side menu there, which is nice to see. But you've got shortcut accesses to gallery, music, and you've got access to Bluetooth for the phone itself. The screen is not too bad. It's got some sort of anti-glare film on it, so that helps with sort of bright light, which is probably nice to see. That's when it's in the car. Quick access to the DVR. We haven't got an SD card installed at the moment, so let's go back home. Quick access to calling or setting up the Bluetooth. Quick access to music as well via Bluetooth once your phone is connected. You've got audio output through FM, auxiliary, otherwise it's going to go through the speaker, which is what it's set to right now. Shame that's not like a menu option, that's tucked away. Volume up and down, it's quite responsive. This is again volume up and down, up on the top right here. Display brightness, auto display brightness. Then you've got CarPlay. That'll be the DVR again. Calling and Bluetooth. So you've got lots of multiple options to get to the same area, which means they could have got rid of a few of these areas here and just to free up that display a little bit nicer. You can't swipe from this screen. You've got to go into the app section to get access to these settings here. Let's just check out settings where you can change the language. The display wallpaper. They've gone for a planet theme by the looks of it. Or you can just have it as black. Black's not black, it's kind of like a grey. You can set which side the driver's seat is on, left and right. We'll be doing it on the right hand side. You can reset camera options, whether you want rear view guidelines, adjustment of the guidelines, as well as the camera loop recording time. Parking mode if it's connected to a certain device. How much of the G sensor you want to fire up for save recordings, format the SD card. We can mute once you've gone into reverse, and the hands-free output can either be set to the speaker or from the auxiliary or FM transmission. It's quite a nice touch. So we can do updates here to update the display. We'll try that out in a minute. And let's just set the time. So that's all set, and the time. Screen's nice and responsive. So let's plug in the USB cable that we plug in at the back. So let's get those wires all fired up now. And then we'll go with the first initial camera. That's good. So you don't have to run that full cable to the camera. So let's go to DVR. And that's the camera there, obviously upside down. And the camera itself can be mounted. It could be mounted anywhere really. You've got over 180 degrees of vertical motion there, so wherever you've got this mounted on your interior, I think you're definitely going to get easy access to where you want to locate this. So unfortunately, you can't do side-to-side motion. You would have to mount it facing sideways. So that's the quality of the camera. I think it's pretty good. It's got some odd colorization going on. Like I got some sort of jaundice in the face there, so the white balance is probably not brilliant, but it seems to handle light and darkness okay with the outside light at the window. But yeah, we'll see once we get it attached to the car and the quality of the camera there. We've got a spare SD card here, just got to insert that. So that's now inserted. So we're going to tap to format, and now we are recording on the camera. So it's set to front and rear, so I assume that we can toggle that on and off. Let's get the rear cable connected just to see if we can actually fire that rear cable without having it plugged in. And again, I'm just going to do it directly connected. Cool, so that's the rear cable connected without the need to fire up or splice into the cable. You can get that feed directly triggered, so that's good to see. I always find it a bit frustrating that you can't fire the rear view camera without initiating the reverse. And then you've got the front one working as well. Not sure what this is for, that's just to take photographs. Oddly that it's in the middle of the screen. And then you can watch these via the rear view camera without. So that's the sound coming from the internal speaker there. And then you've got the menu options to switch between rear and front facing recordings. And you've got the G sensor recorded footage as well in its own little menu too. Unfortunately, there's no split screen mode from what I can tell. Yes, there is. So you can actually have both front and rear facing cameras. You can see that the lenses is slightly different between them both. So you can see the rear view mirror, which is this one here. That's going to be a little bit more wider format. So that's what you need really on the back of the car. Whereas the front facing one's probably got a much more narrower field of view. What else do we have here? You've got the reverse bars for reversing, flipping the feed back and forth, whether you want to have audio being recorded or not. And you can go back to the options here directly and play with those as well. So overall, some nice touches there. It tells you which camera you're viewing at the moment. You can't swipe those cameras. You have to attach the button there. And to get back home, you just literally hit that and then you're back home. And let's get connected to Apple CarPlay. So we're going to go into CarPlay here and see how well this all fires up. Got to turn on our Bluetooth and you can see it's all ready to go. Tap on this. Pair, allow. So before we do that, we're just going to see what happens. So you got the music playing there from the Bluetooth connection, and then you can also swap between multiple devices as well, which is a good touch as well to have. There's no USB connected, so that could mean that you could play music from the USB drive. So let's just see, we'll see that in a minute if that's the thing. Can change Bluetooth name. No, you can't. Can have auto answer at least, so we'll do that. So that's the music playing out, plays on the home screen as well. And you can do calling as well with your favorites. They're not listed as yet. You can call out from it and whatnot. So let's use this for CarPlay. And we're in CarPlay. So it's not the sharpest display on my first impressions. Small little artifacts around the icons that make that very prominent, but it is responsive. Obviously there is no multi-touch on CarPlay.
Well, here we are back in the hot, muggy street of New York.
Okay, so it's not a stereo speaker. The speaker is only coming out of that grill there. Not quite sure what that is for, other than symmetry in the casing, but that's all that is for. Let's just try this button at the back. So you can't sleep the display. If you hold it down, doesn't seem to turn it off either. So let's go back home. Honestly, no idea what that button does then if you can't turn the display on and off. Let's see if there's any updates, shall we? We are connected to the display now. It does say connection status. Well, you can see here that there are a current version of 2.89. Let's see if there is an update. No available updates, and we can't roll back either. You can rate the update. You can subscribe to updates. That's quite a nice feature to let you know whether there's a new update available without you having to keep checking all the time. And there's a process of updating there as well. So quick access to CarPlay icon from the main menu there. The reason why I'm doing this now in this room is that it's absolutely freezing out there. So I'm going to do the bit in the car for just the audio, and I'll just explain how this all works and gets mounted and how the audio works with the car stereo a little bit later on. So I'd say the speakers are quite warped, over about 50%. So I think if you were to just use a speaker, it's good enough loudness. Obviously it's never going to give you the bass that you get with your own car stereo speakers, but as the internal speakers goes, they're not too bad. Again, they're not stereo, it's only coming out of that grill there. I would say it's adequate for voice and sort of turn signal narration. CarPlay has I'd say about 2 seconds in touch input and audio, so you're going to get that with navigation as well. All the GPS will come from the phone once it's connected. And let's do a voice test. Hi, this is Anthony from CarPlayLife.com, and this is an audio test using the ATOTO P8 CarPlay display. Hoping that this little dot here is the microphone, and it's not my phone, that's the microphone, and this is an audio test. Okay, so that sounds like it is being picked up from this little microphone here. It's very quiet though, but I do have the volume down by half. So once we get in the car, I'll do another test to see how well that sounds. Let's try calling. Okay, let's do a call test. Hello?
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 All right, so I think that's really good. Quite a good response back and forth there, at least on CarPlay. So let's switch over to Android and see how well Android runs. Pair is now active. Pixel has been picked up. And then we're into Android Auto. So now we're in Android Auto, which looks pretty good. Slightly squashed circles here. If I go onto here, you can see they're more like slightly egg shaped. So the resolution output of the Android is getting slightly more squashed. CarPlay might have also been like that, but I didn't think that was that noticeable. Audio has now automatically resumed. Switching tracks is always a little bit faster on Android Auto, so expect about 1 to 2 second delay there, which is a little bit more acceptable. The responsiveness of the displays though, and the feed, I say the quality is a little bit blurry, but that's kind of what you expect with a slightly lower resolution display. But responsiveness is very good. It does remind me of the Coral Vision Lite a little bit, but generally responsive. Again, you can't multi-touch in Android Auto. So no pinch and zoom for that. I am very curious about this USB icon at the top here. Right, so I've got a USB drive here, which I'm going to plug into the USB port that's in the 12-volt adapter. You do have two ports. One's power for recharging a phone, for example. And you have another one which says MP3/AA, which you might be able to do Android Auto over wire. So I've plugged in the USB port. That's picked up the music file samples. And now they're playing through. So you've got AAC. FLAC is fine, MP3, and they're going to play from the home screen as well, and you can quickly tap to access that section, as well as Bluetooth if you want to switch between the two. You can try the gallery if you've got some images, for example. So it's just music, no video, and it seems to play all those music files just fine. Just quickly, I've got a USB-A to C cable, and I'm going to plug this into my Android device and see if it does wired Android Auto. Going to plug this in now. It is charging it, and we're in what looks like wired Android Auto. So that's a good option. If you want to have Android Auto wired, that's obviously going to have the best speed quality and performance when you're not using it over the Wi-Fi connection. So if I disconnect this device, it does disconnect. So even though Bluetooth was enabled on the phone, possibly for calling, you can actually have it connected through a wire as well. So let's see if we can do that with CarPlay. It's charging it, but will it do CarPlay? No. Doesn't look like it will do CarPlay. So unfortunately, Android Auto users, win-win for that. But for CarPlay users that want to use it wired, it will charge your phone, but it won't actually do wired CarPlay on the display. You have to use it only wirelessly. Okay, let's get dressed up, head in the car and see how well this display works. Right, so we're in the car, a little bit colder than we'd liked it to be, but let's get going. We've got the ATOTO P8 here, ready to go. We're going to get this on our dash, stuck to this screen, I think, first. So we're going to attach the little ball joint mount here first to the backing plate, and then we'll attach this to our display. So all the cameras are removed at the moment. I'm just going to plug this cable into my 12-volt adapter that's down below. But there isn't that much reach on it than some other dash adapters, so we'll play around with this and see if we can get this installed in a decent location on the dashboard here. Right, so that's the mount display attached on the display here up on top. Just feeding that cable off the right hand side here down, and I'm going to then connect it to our 12-volt adapter in the car. So it's a big fat chunky cable, so considering it's got the aux and power connected to it, so do bear that in mind if you're thinking about doing a channeling or discrete install through air vents and things like that. It's quite a thick cable. Right, so we've got the cable installed up to the display. Let's now turn it on. So that's the display up and running now, back onto its main menu, and that's all it's fired up. So I'm going to reconnect CarPlay, and we're into CarPlay. Right, low battery, so excuse the noise at the background. But basically that's the speaker audio that's attached to the display itself. Now we're going to do the FM transmission and see how we get on with that. So we're going to go to the radio on our system here and go to a 105.8, and we've got no interference there whatsoever. So we're going to go back and turn on the radio frequency and go to 105.8, the same frequency as before. So we're now locked in. Let's go back into CarPlay and resume. I'll turn up my stereo. And that's good. Unlike some other displays that I've heard before, the FM is actually good quality. This must be a shielded cable as well to stop all the interference. But obviously I can't use my wheel controls. It's going to change the radio station. So I have to do it through the display or on my phone instead. Their solution is though the adapter that you can attach to a wheel control, which I'll try now and see how well that works. It's not too bad. If I can pan the camera over. So that's the dial controls here. You can have that on your wheel, but it's a bit moving, it's a bit intrusive, I think. So mounting that somewhere might be a better option. anywhere on the dashboard. It could be located lower down, but this is magnetized and it clips on. You can use the accessories that comes with it to mount it wherever you like, really, wherever that adhesive can be attached onto. So you can see I can turn the volume, I can mute it, I can unmute it, I can skip tracks, and it's already paired. I hadn't to do any pairing with this yet. I can play and pause, and I can hold this down, and I can actually go to the front camera, and I can hold this down and go to the rear camera. So that's a nice touch as well. And I can hold that down for microphone or anything else that I've attached to this display, such as an Android device for Google Assistant. And generally, just a nice way to interact with the display, really. If I press that button down again, I go back to the main menu. It doesn't allow me to go back to CarPlay. I have to press the button there instead. And then we're back into CarPlay. So not bad going. It's totally responsive. That's what you want, really. You could actually mount that on your steering wheel where your controls are. If you haven't got any wheel controls, you'll definitely have room on your wheel to mount that little device to interact with. That's quite a nice touch too. And the volume will just be your volume knob on the car stereo itself. So interaction and just general CarPlay stuff is really good for that, I think. And there's no warping with the bass like on some other displays. So that's pretty good. Bass is okay, actually. It's not over bassy over the FM sequence, so that's really good to see. So let's just quickly try auxiliary instead. So here we have the auxiliary cable here. So instead of running another cable from the display and having like oodles of cables running from the display itself, we can just plug this into the 12-volt adapter that's down in with all the rest of the cables, so it keeps it all compact. And there's a chances are that your cigarette lighter is going to be close to your auxiliary port anyway, so you could even run a separate board cable that's really short for even less clutter. So that's auxiliary connected, and now on the system I'm going to auxiliary. So now we're on auxiliary on my stereo. So that's auxiliary. Sounds even better if you do have that ability to use this display with an auxiliary connection. It's going to give you slightly better audio quality over FM transmission, even though FM transmission on this particular unit actually does sound quite good as well, with very little interference. Let's just try a test on the microphone again from a distance. Hi, this is Anthony from CarPlayLife.com, and this is an audio message using the P8 ATOTO CarPlay display. And this is an audio test using the built-in microphone. Okay, so that's really quiet. I had to really whack up the volume here just to even hear that properly. Not quite sure why that is, because the calling is normally quite loud. I'll do a test call. Hello? 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 So the audio is coming from the speaker on the actual display, which you can set in settings. Obviously the speaker audio is definitely a lot better than what was coming out through the speakers on the car via transmission. So let's just change that. So hands free. Let's just try another call. Hello? 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 Okay, so it's not too bad on the actual phone itself. I can hear myself through that microphone, but just hearing the call back was very low for some reason. Very faint, which is probably the only letdown for me at the moment with this display. I'm just going to connect up the camera to the front of the dash just to show you exactly how that would work. And again, if I press the power button, it doesn't really do anything, which I find a bit weird. Even holding it down doesn't do anything. A little bit of pops and hisses from the auxiliary port connection. I don't know what that's about. So here's the camera. I'll have to fire up the display again. So front camera, it is recording already. So there's plenty of length here to have this camera without the extension all the way to the front of the display. Whether you'd want that though, I'm not really sure. I could have it mounted up here for a better view. I could even have it attached to the glass and just rock that bit up a little better view. Obviously the cable is going to be slightly attached. You could also have it mounted onto the front of the display you could actually have it mounted here. You could then flip display over so you actually get a more driver perspective view. Or you could just have it quite high up on this side here, have it mounted in view, but obviously where your screen's going to go. So I'm going to probably just stick it here temporarily, just so that we've got an example of how good this is. So that would be a temporary solution, but what you could do, you could mount it all the way along the dash and back and up to the very top to have a top-down perspective, or you could just have the cable go discreetly to the front of the mount of the dashboard and have it down there too. Obviously bear in mind where the windscreen is being cleared by your wipers. You don't want to have it down here because it's probably going to be not cleared with the windscreen wipers if you were to record when it's raining, so bear that in mind. Okay, so I'm going to take this for a spin, show you some examples of its recording quality. I'll try and wire up the rear camera as well so you can actually get footage of the rear camera too, and you can get the quality of the rear view camera as well. Even though I won't be mounting it on the outside, it'll be within the inside of the car. But overall, I think it's a decent quality display from ATOTO there. It's got a nice reflectionless display. It's got that kind of like matte sheen to it, so it's not going to create lots of reflections. Its user interface is quite simplified, easy to touch at that screen size, especially when it's just not that much out of reach. And its home screen could have been a little bit less cluttered, but you've got everything there quite easy at hand. The fact that it does both front and rear inputs is really, really nice. The fact that it has all contained in the cable, this one cable, is a really nice touch that all manufacturers should actually adopt. The remote control is also a nice addition to have that as well. So you have that mounted anywhere on the dashboard or on your steering wheel with the adhesive mount that comes supplied. That's really nice touch. FM quality is good over some other displays that I've heard recently, so that's really encouraging. And the auxiliary input without that little pops and hisses when it's not being used is good quality as well, and the fact you can change between them is good too. Dashcam footage on this surface looks quite good as well. No app support as far as I can tell, but getting them off that TF card shouldn't be a problem either. The ATOTO P8 retails for £159.90 and there's a £25 voucher off at the moment on the UK Amazon store. So if you're interested and you want to check this thing out, check out my links down below to learn more about it, and you can support the channel by buying yourself one. Decent display with the only exception of the microphone issue through text messages, but calling didn't seem to have that problem. So if you are looking for a portable CarPlay display that's 7 inches, then this is actually quite a good display to consider. All right, thanks for watching, and I hope you found this video helpful. Leave us a like if it has, and let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this display from ATOTO. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.